Today, we're going to start talking about the Peloponnesian War. So, our goal is to be able to describe the impact of the Greco-Persian and Peloponnesian War, which you should have learned about the Greco-Persian before this. And we're going to do this kind of web quest style through this video in order to understand how war is going to completely change Greece. So, a little bit of background before we get going. There's a couple places I need to point out to you. The first is Athens is a part of this whole network of allies, and they are located on this peninsula right here. See that little edge called Attica. And so you're going to see the word Attica a lot, okay? The second thing is Sparta, right here, is a part of this island, peninsula, not. So they're part of what is known as the Peloponnese, and that's where the Peloponnesian War gets its name. So those are going to be our two main players here. Another place to keep in mind is this guy right here, this city-state called Corinth. That will be a big one in this, as well as Thebes. Miss Wood is gonna find it. You'll be fine. Okay, so with that, we're gonna begin with right after the Greco-Persian War and the formation of the Delian League. So to learn about that, we're gonna watch this video. It's about 2-ish minutes long, a little longer than that. So I'm going to stay quiet while you watch.
After the bloody conflict, the Greeks finally managed to expel the Persians from their territory. The Greek city-states were unified and established by the Hellenic League. This alliance was commanded by Sparta and had the goal to defend Greece against a Persian invasion. However, after the Persian defeat, the Spartans and their allies at the Peloponnesus did not see any point in extending the alliance. After the exit of the Spartans and their allies, the alliance's leadership was in the hands of the city of Athens. In Asia Minor, the Greek cities which were under the Persian rule took advantage of the frailty of their enemies and became independent from the Persian Empire. However, they feared being conquered again, and so they joined the alliance led by Athens. The members of the former Hellenic League reunited in the sacred island of Delos, where they agreed to provide ships to form a great fleet to stand for their members in case of future Persian invasions. The cities that could not lend any ships to the alliance would be forced to pay tribute to maintain the armies. A major part of the collected resources was used to reconstruct the city of Athens, which had been shattered during the war against Xerxes. As years went by, Athens kept strengthening itself more and more as the leader of the Confederation. Leading the Mediterranean's most powerful fleet, Athens started to rule the region's sea trade, becoming the wealthiest city in Greece. As years went by, the risk of a Persian counterattack became unlikely. Therefore, some Greek cities decided to lead the Delian League. However, Athens did not allow it. Tired of paying tributes to the League, some cities rebelled and wanted their independence. Athens crushed the rebellions and destroyed the fortifications of the rebelling cities. So the cities became vulnerable and no longer could carry out an uprising. Athens now had far greater authority, which largely exceeded its role as leader of the alliance. Its relationship with the remaining cities was now sovereign vassal. A new leader emerged in Athens. His name was Pericles. One of his first measures was to bring the alliance's treasure, located in Delos, to Athens. The wealth of the Confederation was used for several purposes which were not related to the defense of the League's members. Pericles used part of that treasure to reconstruct and extend the Acropolis of Athens. Prosperity started to reign in Athens. Its golden age had begun. Their Spartan neighbors watched the birth of the Athenian Empire with concern.
Okay, so we have concern from the Spartans rising up, and also tons of people making alliances with one another. This alliance making is going to cause eventually a war, and also just the fact that Sparta is going to be not very trusting of Athens. Oops. All right, so the Peloponnesian War is broken into two parts with a period of peace in between. So we're going to start with this reading here from National Geographic. And this is about the First Peloponnesian War, or the Archimedean War. Um, and I went ahead and highlighted when it's talking about Sparta and its allies in red, and Athens and its allies in blue. That way you can kind of keep the names of these places straight in your head. So with that, let's go ahead and read. Athens and Sparta had previously quarreled in the decades prior to the war. One of Sparta's allies, Corinth, had directly engaged the Athenian army. Corinth went back to being hostile towards Athens when Athens threatened Corinth's interest in the region surrounding Corinth's Syria. This eventually drew Sparta into the conflict. The Spartan army began by raiding lands within an Athenian allied territory, particularly a region near Athens called Attica. The Athenians had built walls stretching from their seaport to the city of Athens. The walls helped protect Athens from direct assault, and its leader, Pericles, urged Athens not to engage in direct land battles with the Spartans. Instead, the Athenians used their navy to deliver troops into the Spartan territory to conduct raids on settlements. Okay, so we have Corinth is a Spartan ally, and they're already fighting with Athens. And then Sparta is going to get involved because Corinth is its ally, and they're going to attack Attica, which is part of Athens' allies. And then they're going to end up in full out war with one another because they're attacking each other's allies. And Sparta is going to continuously, I did that, Athenians in red. Sparta is going to continuously attack Athens on land, but what's going to stop them is these walls. So Athens is really in the back here, more inland, but they have this long stretch of wall, which leads to their seaport, which you could also see in this image that we looked at before when we were talking about Athens and Sparta. So basically, Sparta's not going to get anywhere from making these attacks on Athens. So Athens decides to go ahead and take their troops over to Sparta and try to raid their settlements. After years of open warfare, Sparta is then going to offer peace to Athens, and Athens is going to accept. The agreement was made official with the signing of the Peace of Nicaea. The treaty stated that Athens and Sparta would defend each other for the next 50 years. However, the treaty only lasted 6. Which then brings us to the Second Peloponnesian War, the Deccan War, whatever they're called both. So the hostilities are going to resume between Athens and Sparta with an assault launched by the Athenians at Sicily. So Sparta is going to decide to retaliate because the Athenians attacked them. Learning from its past experience with the Athenian navy, they're going to establish a fleet of warships. It would be another decade of warfare before the Spartan general Lysander defeated the Athenian fleet at Aegospotami. The defeat led to the Athenian surrender. As a result, the Peloponnesian War was concluded. Simultaneously to the end of the conflict came the end of the golden age of Athens. Okay, so here are some key points that you should make sure you have. The Peloponnesian War is a fight between the Delian League and the Peloponnesian League. The Delian League is led by Athens, the Peloponnesian by Sparta. And during this conflict, they're not going to have the typical battle between Greek city states that are very formal. Instead, they're just going to full on fight, no holding back kind of thing. Um, and there's going to be like large scale problems and crimes and things like that. And during this phase, the first phase, the Archimedean War or the First Peloponnesian War, Sparta is going to continuously try to invade Attica, but Athens is going to use its navy to raid the Peloponnese and kind of have the upper hand. Initially, this strategy, guided by Pericles, who is the Athenian leader, was to avoid open battle with the more numerous and better trained Spartan hoplites or army. And instead, they're going to rely on Athens' superior naval fleet. Again, they're just fighting with their navy. Eventually, there is going to be a plague, which we didn't talk about before, but the Athenians are going to turn against Pericles' idea and start more in an aggressive phase towards Sparta and its allies. And then this aggressive phase is met with the Peace of Nicaea, which is going to give them a period of 6 years of peace, even though they said they would have peace for 50 years. And then the destruction of Athens' fleet is going to happen at the end of the Second Peloponnesian War or the Deccan War, when Sparta develops its own navy, which will lead Athens to surrender. Cool. So that is the war. Here are the impacts of that war. So we're going to see power go from Athens, which was having a golden age directly after the Greco-Persian War, to Sparta, who is going to then be the most powerful city-state and kind of do the same thing Athens was doing. Go around, take tribute from other city-states, tell them what to do, things like that. And then in Athens, democracy is going to be overthrown. And Lysander, which is the Spartan leader, is going to help organize the 30 tyrants to kind of be in charge in Athens for their government for about 13 months. In that 13-month period, there is like lots of rights being taken away from the Athenians. 5% of their population is going to be killed. People who supported democracy are going to be exiled. And just a lot of land being taken away from the wealthier classes. And then Lysander is also going to go around to these other city-states and set up many pro-Spartan governments, not just Athens, that are going to do whatever Sparta tells them they need to do. But what ends up happening is they're more loyal to Lysander than they are to Sparta. And then Aegeus II, one of the two Spartan kings at that time, is going to be very famous for squashing the rebellions from other city-states, including a city called Thebes. The Persians, however, are going to eventually help the Athenians, Corinthians, and Thebians overthrow Sparta and basically take back Greece from them. And then that is going to eventually weaken Greece forever and let a new leader come in from the very top of Greece, which we can go look at really quick. The Macedonians. Okay, so they're going to be so weak that Macedonia is going to come into play here, and we're going to see in our next lesson Alexander the Great take full power.